As you know, on
Thank you.
March 22nd, Special Counsel Robert Mueller concluded his investigation into matters related to Russian attempts to interfere in our 2016 presidential election, and he submitted his confidential report to me pursuant to department regulations. As I said during my Senate confirmation hearing and since, I'm committed to ensuring the greatest degree possible of transparency concerning the special counsel's investigation, consistent with the law. At 11 this morning, I'm going to transmit copies of the public version of the special counsel's report to the chairman and ranking members of the Senate and House Judiciary Committees. The Department of Justice will also make the report available to the American people by posting it on the department's website after it has been delivered to Congress. I'd like to make a few comments today on the report. Before I do that, I want to thank Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein for joining me here today and for his assistance and counsel throughout this process. Rod, as you know, has served at the department for nearly 30 years with dedication and distinction, and it's been a great privilege and pleasure for me to work with him since my confirmation. He had well-deserved plans to step back from public service that were interrupted by my asking him to help in my transition. Rod has been an invaluable partner, and I am grateful that he is willing to help me and has been able to see the special counsel's investigation through to its conclusion. Thanks, Rod.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'd also like to thank Special Counsel Robert Mueller for his service and the thoroughness of his investigation, particularly his work exposing the nature of Russia's attempts to interfere in our electoral process. As you know, one of the primary purposes of the Special Counsel's investigation was to determine whether President Trump's campaign or any individual associated with it conspired or coordinated with the Russian government to interfere in the 2016 election. Volume 1 of the Special Counsel's report describes the results of that investigation. As you will see, the Special Counsel's report states that his, quote, investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. I am sure that all Americans share my concern about the efforts of the Russian government to interfere in our presidential election. As the Special Counsel report makes clear, the Russian government sought to interfere in our election process. But thanks to the Special Counsel's thorough investigation, we now know that the Russian operatives who perpetrated these schemes did not have the cooperation of President Trump or the Trump campaign, or the knowing assistance of any other American for that matter. That is something that all Americans can and should be grateful to have confirmed. The Special Counsel report outlines two main efforts by the Russian government to influence the 2016 election. First, the report details efforts by the Internet Research Agency, a Russian company with close ties to the Russian government, to sow social discord among American voters through disinformation and social media operations. Following a thorough investigation of this disinformation campaign, the Special Counsel brought charges in federal court against several Russian nationals and entities for their respective roles in this scheme. Those charges remain pending, and the individual defendants remain at large. But the Special Counsel found no evidence that any American, including anyone associated with the Trump campaign, conspired or coordinated with the Russian government or the IRA in this illegal scheme. Indeed, as the report states, quote, the investigation did not identify evidence that any U.S. person knowingly or intentionally coordinated with the IRA's interference operation, unquote. Put another way, the Special Counsel found no collusion by any Americans in IRA's illegal activities. Second, the report details efforts by the Russian military officials associated with the GRU, the Russian Military Intelligence Organization, to hack into computers and steal documents and emails from individuals associated with the Democratic Party and Hillary Clinton's campaign for the purpose of eventually publicizing these documents. Obtaining such unauthorized access into computers is a federal crime. Following a thorough investigation of these hacking operations, the special counsel brought charges in federal court against several Russian military officers for their respective roles in these illegal hacking operations. Those charges are still pending, and the defendants remain at large. But again, the special counsel's report did not find any evidence that members of the Trump campaign or anyone associated with the campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in these hacking operations. In other words, there was no evidence of the Trump campaign collusion with the Russian government's hacking. The special counsel's investigation also examined Russian efforts to publish stolen emails and documents on the internet. The special counsel found that after the GRU disseminated some of the stolen documents to entities that it controlled, DC Leaks and Guccifer 2, the GRU transferred some of the stolen materials to WikiLeaks for publication. WikiLeaks then made a series of document dumps. The special counsel also investigated whether any member or affiliate of the Trump campaign encouraged or otherwise played a role in these dissemination efforts. Under applicable law, publication of these types of material would not be criminal unless the publisher also participated in the underlying hacking conspiracy. Here, too, the special counsel's report did not find that any person associated with the Trump campaign illegally participated in the dissemination of the materials. Finally, the special counsel investigated a number of links or contacts between the Trump campaign officials and individuals connected with the Russian government during the 2016 presidential campaign. After reviewing these contacts, the special counsel did not find any conspiracy to violate U.S. law involving Russian-linked persons and any persons associated with the Trump campaign. So that's the bottom line. After nearly 2 years of investigation, thousands of subpoenas, hundreds of warrants, and witness interviews, the special counsel confirmed that the Russian government sponsored efforts to illegally interfere with the 2016 presidential election, but did not find that the Trump campaign or other Americans colluded in those efforts. After finding no underlying collusion with Russia, the special counsel's report goes on to consider whether certain actions of the president could amount to obstruction of the special counsel's investigation. As I addressed in my March 24th letter, the special counsel did not make a traditional prosecutorial judgment regarding this allegation. Instead, the report recounts 10 episodes involving the president and discusses potential legal theories for connecting those activities to the elements of an obstruction offense. After carefully reviewing the facts and legal theories outlined in the report, and in consultation with the Office of Legal Counsel and other department lawyers, the Deputy Attorney General and I concluded that the evidence developed by the special counsel is not sufficient to establish that the president committed an obstruction of justice offense. Although the Deputy Attorney General and I disagreed with some of the special counsel's legal theories and felt that some of the episodes examined did not amount to obstruction as a matter of law, we did not rely solely on that in making our decision. Instead, we accepted the special counsel's legal framework for purposes of our analysis and evaluated the evidence as presented by the special counsel in reaching our conclusions. In assessing the president's actions discussed in the report, it is important to bear in mind the context. President Trump faced an unprecedented situation. As he entered into office and sought to perform his responsibilities as president, federal agents and prosecutors were scrutinizing his conduct before and after taking office and the conduct of some of his associates. At the same time, there was relentless speculation in the news media about the president's personal culpability. Yet, as he said from the beginning, there was in fact no collusion. And as the special counsel's report acknowledges, there is substantial evidence to show that the president was frustrated and angered by his sincere belief that the investigation was undermining his presidency, propelled by his political opponents, and fueled by illegal leaks. Nonetheless, the White House fully cooperated with the special counsel's investigation, providing unfettered access to campaign and White House documents, directing senior aides to testify freely, and asserting no privilege claims. And at the same time, the president took no act that in fact deprived the special counsel of the documents and witnesses necessary to complete his investigation. Apart from whether the acts were obstructive, this evidence of non-corrupt motives weighs heavily against any allegation that the president had a corrupt intent to obstruct the investigation. Now, before I take questions, I want to address a few aspects of the process for producing the public report that I am releasing today. As I said several times, the report contains limited redactions related to 4 categories of information. To ensure as much transparency as possible, those redactions have been clearly labeled so that the readers can tell which redactions correspond to which categories. Now, as to recall, those categories are 6E material, grand jury material, information that the IC believes would disclose sources and methods, information that would impair the investigation and prosecution of other cases that are underway, and finally, information that implicates the privacy and reputational interests of peripheral third parties. As you will see, most of the redactions were compelled by the need to prevent harm to ongoing matters and to comply with court orders prohibiting the public disclosure of information bearing on ongoing investigations and criminal cases, such as the IRA case and the Roger Stone case. These redactions were applied by Department of Justice attorneys working closely together with attorneys from the special counsel's office, as well as the intelligence community, and prosecutors are handling the ongoing cases. The redactions are their work product. No redactions done by anybody outside this group. There were no redactions done by anybody outside this group. No one outside this group proposed any redactions, and no one outside the department has seen the unredacted report, with the exception of certain sections that were made available to IC, the intelligence community, for their advice on protecting intelligence sources and methods. Consistent with longstanding executive branch practice, the decision whether to assert executive privilege over any portion of the report rested with the President of the United States. Because the White House had voluntarily cooperated with the special counsel, significant portions of the report contained material over which the President could have asserted privilege, and he would have been well within his rights to do so. Following my March 29th letter, the Office of the White House Counsel requested the opportunity to review the redacted version of the report in order to advise the President on the potential invocation of privilege, which is consistent with longstanding practice. Following that review, the President confirmed that in the interest of transparency and full disclosure to the American people, he would not assert privilege over the special counsel's report. Accordingly, the public report I am releasing today contains redactions only for the 4 categories that I previously outlined, and no material has been redacted based on executive privilege. In addition, earlier this week, The President's personal counsel requested and was given the opportunity to read a final version of the redacted report before it was publicly released. That request was consistent with the practice followed under the Ethics in Government Act, which permitted individuals named in a report prepared by an independent counsel the opportunity to read the report before publication. The President's personal lawyers were not permitted to make and did not request any redactions. In addition to making the redacted report public, we are also working with Congress to accommodate their legitimate oversight interests with respect to the special counsel's investigation. We have been consulting with Chairman Graham and Chairman Nadler through this process, and we will continue to do so. Given the limited nature of the redactions, I believe that the publicly released report will allow every American to understand the results of the special counsel's investigation. Nevertheless, in an effort to accommodate congressional requests, we will make available, subject to appropriate safeguards, to a bipartisan group of leaders from several congressional committees, a version of the report with all redactions removed, except those relating to grand jury information. Thus, these members of Congress will be able to see all of the redacted material for themselves, with the limited exception of that which, by law, cannot be shared. I believe that this accommodation, together with my upcoming testimony before the Senate and House Judiciary Committees, will satisfy any need Congress has for information regarding the special counsel's investigation. Once again, I'd like to thank you for being here, and I will now have a few questions.
Mr. Attorney General, we don't have the report in hand, so could you explain for us the special counsel's articulated reason for not reaching a decision on obstruction of justice, and if it had anything to do with the department's long-standing guidance on not indicting a sitting president? And you say you disagreed with some of his legal theories. What did you disagree with him on?
I'd leave it to his description in the report, the special counsel's own articulation of why he did not want to make a determination as to whether or not there was an obstruction offense. But I will say that when we met with him, Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein and I met with him, along with Ed O'Callaghan, who is the principal associate deputy, on March 5th, we specifically asked him about the OLC opinion and whether or not he was taking the position that he would have found a crime but for the existence of the OLC opinion. And he made it very clear several times that that was not his position. He was not saying that but for the OLC opinion he would have found a crime. He made it clear that he had not made the determination that there was a crime.
Did you disagree with him on?
May I follow up on that, Mr. Attorney General?
What did you disagree with him on?
Given that, why did you and Mr. Rosenstein feel the need you had to take it to the next step to conclude that there was no crime, especially given that DOJ policy?
Well, the very prosecutorial function and all our powers as prosecutors, including the power to convene grand juries and the compulsory process that's involved there, is for one purpose and one purpose only. It's determine yes or no. Was alleged conduct criminal or not criminal? That is our responsibility, and that's why we have the tools we have. And we don't go through this process just to collect information and throw it out to the public. We collect this information, we use that compulsory process for the purpose of making that decision. And because the special counsel did not make that decision, we felt the department had to, and that was a decision by me and the Deputy Attorney General. Yes.
Or did the special counsel indicate that he wanted you to make the decision, or that it should be left for Congress? And also, how do you respond to criticism you're receiving from congressional Democrats that you're acting more as an attorney for the president rather than as the chief law enforcement officer?
Well, Special Counsel Mueller did not indicate that his purpose was to leave the decision to Congress. I hope that was not his view, since we don't convene grand juries and conduct criminal investigations for that purpose. He did not. I didn't talk to him directly about the fact that we were making the decision, but I am told that his reaction to that was that it was my prerogative as Attorney General to make that decision.
Attorney General Barr, Catherine here at Fox News. Hi there. Is there anything you can share today about your review of the genesis of the Russia investigation and whether assets have been provided to investigate?
No, today I'm really focused just on the process of releasing this report.
Attorney General, senior Democrats in Congress have asked for Robert Mueller himself to testify. Robert Mueller remains a Justice Department employee as of this moment. Will you permit him to testify publicly to Congress?
I have no objection to Bob Mueller personally testifying.
Mr. Attorney General, it's not just Democrats who have questioned some of the process here. A Republican-appointed judge on Tuesday said you have, quote, created an environment that has caused a significant part of the American public to be concerned about these redactions. You cleared the president on obstruction. The president is fundraising off of your comments about spying. And here you have remarks that are quite generous to the president, including acknowledging his feelings and his emotions. So what do you say to people on both sides of the aisle who are concerned that you are trying to protect the president?
Well, actually, the statements about his sincere beliefs are recognized in the report, that there was substantial evidence for that. So I'm not sure what your basis is for saying that I'm being generous to the president.
You face an unprecedented situation. It just seems like there's a lot of effort to go out of your way to acknowledge how this.
Well, is there another precedent for it?
No, but it's unusual.
Okay, so
that,
unprecedented is an accurate description, isn't it?
yes, but
Okay.
what do you say to people who are concerned that you are trying to protect the president?
Eric?
There's a lot of public interest in the absence of the special counsel and members of his team. Was he invited to join you up on the podium? Why is he not here? This is his report, obviously, that you're talking about today.
No, it's not. It's a report he did for me as the Attorney General. He is required under the regulation to provide me with a confidential report. I'm here to discuss my response to that report and my decision, entirely discretionary, to make it public, since these reports are not supposed to be made public. That's what I'm here to discuss.
Impropriety for you to come out and sort of what appears to be sort of spinning the report before the public gets a chance to read it?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
So that's William Barr just moments ago concluding that news conference. No one has yet seen this outside of William Barr's team and the personal lawyer for Donald Trump. A version of it, a redacted version, is slated to be delivered to Congress in an hour, and then it's going to be made public. CBC's Ellen Morrow was watching a U.S. Attorney General Barr's news conference. She is standing by live in our Washington bureau. Walk me through Barr's key points that he underlined. Ellen?
Well, so Hannah, the key point for Attorney General William Barr throughout this press conference was emphasizing the fact that Robert Mueller, Special Counsel Robert Mueller, did not establish that there was any conspiracy, any collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, the Russian government, leading up to the 2016 election. And Barr went through some of the Russian election interference efforts that Special Counsel Robert Mueller uncovered, including hacking documents, Democratic documents, Hillary Clinton's emails. Mueller also concluded that Russian intelligence agents were trying to use social media platforms to sow discord in the United States ahead of that election. And at each point, Attorney General William Barr highlighted the conclusion of Robert Mueller that there was no conspiracy between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. He also talked about WikiLeaks, saying that Russian hackers handed over some of their stolen documents, the emails, Hillary Clinton emails, other Democratic emails, to WikiLeaks, and then dumped him. And I just dumped those documents online. I just want to read that part of William Barr's statement, because there seems to be somewhat of an important qualifier in that statement, saying the special counsel also investigated whether any member or affiliate of the Trump campaign encouraged or otherwise played a role in these dissemination efforts, the posting of these documents on WikiLeaks. Under applicable law, publication of these types of materials would not be criminal unless the publisher also participated in the underlying hacking conspiracy. Here, too, the special counsel's report did not find any person associated with the Trump campaign illegally participated in the decimation of these materials. That's going to be an important sentence, the one in the middle there where Barr said that publishing these materials, so long as someone was not involved in the hacking of them, is not illegal. Now, beyond this question of collusion, we also heard William Barr speak at length about this issue of obstruction of justice. Now, we know Robert Mueller did not make a final determination on whether or not President Trump committed obstruction of justice. Instead, he laid out the evidence on either side after investigating 10 different actions by President Trump and came down in the middle, saying that while the investigation does not exonerate President Trump, or it does not exonerate him, it also doesn't find that he committed a crime. So Mueller came down in the middle, and then Attorney General William Barr came in and said there was insufficient evidence to say there was obstruction. And in that clip there, you hear Barr explain some of his background thinking of that decision. He talked about the relentless media speculation of collusion, that the president, according to the evidence gathered, had a sincere belief that he was being sort of unfairly targeted by the Russia investigation. So a lot from William Barr in that press conference, highlighting that main finding of no collusion or conspiracy between the Trump campaign and the Russian government, also saying that he would have no objection to Special Counsel Robert Mueller testifying about his investigation.
I do have the right to fight back, and I'm fighting back not for me. I'm fighting back for the people of this country.
No collusion. There was no collusion. No collusion.
No collusion.
There is absolutely no collusion.
There's no collusion. The fact is there is no collusion.
No collusion. There's no collusion.
This is a investigation where many, many millions of dollars has been spent, and there's no collusion.
This is a win for this president who, for now 2 years, has essentially been screaming there was no Russia collusion. He is backed up by Mueller.
Maybe every time he said no collusion, like more than 231 times so far, maybe every time he said no collusion, he was telling the truth.
This was an illegal takedown that failed. And hopefully somebody's going to look at the other side.
Now, Suhanna, that was a video that President Trump posted on Twitter just before the press conference from William Barr. You see all the times he personally said no collusion, no obstruction. Interesting that the reporters he put in that video are from CNN, a news network the president is no fan of by comments he's made in the past. At the end there, you also get a bit of a preview of the further messaging we might hear from him, criticizing the fact that the investigation happened in the first place.
I want to ask you more about this rollout and the plans to get this report into the hands of Congress, into the hands of the public. Democrats certainly want to hear more from Mueller. What's the latest on that front?
Well, Democrats have taken issue with the way this is all playing out this morning, Suhanna. The fact that William Barr had that press conference at 9:30 a.m. before the public or anyone in Congress has had the opportunity to view the report. The Justice Department says this is in the interest of transparency, having Barr come out this morning and make those comments. But the Democrats have accused him of trying to spin this. We have a statement we can show you from Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, the top Democrats on Capitol Hill. They released it a short time ago, saying that we believe the only way to begin restoring public trust in the handling of the special counsel's investigation is for special counsel Mueller himself to provide public testimony in the House and Senate as soon as possible. Now, they've also said that Barr has handled this in a regrettably partisan way and accused him of an indefensible plan to spin the report in this press conference. So they're not happy with the timing. We did hear, though, William Barr say he has no problem with Robert Mueller testifying on Capitol Hill, and that's something I think we can definitely expect to happen in the next few weeks, if not months.
Ellen, as soon as this report comes out, and it will be very soon, within the hour we're hearing, I know you will be poring over it. Our news team will be doing the same here at CBC News, and we will bring our viewers all of those details immediately, so we'll have to digest it very quickly. But right now, let's take a moment. I want to ask you to remind me of some of the key points you will be paying particular attention to.
Well, the redactions will be the most obvious thing to see at first. There are 4 categories of redactions, including for classified information. We heard Barr say that this report has been looked at by the intelligence community to see if anything should be redacted on that front. There'll also be redactions for information related to ongoing cases, like that against Donald Trump's confidant during the campaign, Roger Stone. So we'll have to see how much is redacted. He said there are light redactions. Media reports say there are light redactions. So we could actually have quite a good look if that is accurate, that the redactions are light. Now, the other big topic here, Suhana, to look out for in this report is the question of obstruction of justice. Again, because Robert Mueller did not make that final call himself either way, it'll be really interesting to read his own reasoning for why he didn't make that judgment, because after all, a special counsel, a prosecutor, is traditionally supposed to make that call about whether or not there was a crime committed. Instead, Robert Mueller has written, while the report did not conclude President Trump committed a crime, it also did not totally exonerate him. We heard William Barr say that Robert Mueller investigated 10 separate actions on the part of President Trump that were as part of this obstruction of justice investigation. We don't know what those acts are. In Barr's summary letter last month, he said many of them have been the subject of public reporting. They happened in the public realm. It'll be interesting to see if there's anything that we don't know, if any of those 10 acts were things that happened completely behind the scenes. It'll also be interesting to look at what acts that did happen in public the special counsel looked at. Was he looking at any of the tweets President Trump sent about a former Attorney General Jeff Sessions, for example? Was he looking at the firing of former FBI Director James Comey? How James Comey said that Trump asked him to go easy on former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Those incidents will be very interesting to have a look at what Special Counsel Mueller actually investigated on that front. The other issue here is going to be more about the Russian election interference. In the letter he sent last month, Barr said the Russian government made multiple offers to the Trump campaign. Now, again, Special Counsel Mueller found that there was no conspiracy, no collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, but it'll be interesting to see in what ways the Russian government actually did try to reach out to the Trump campaign. Now, as you said, this is nearly 400 pages that we'll have to be going through, but certainly legal analysts will be looking at that obstruction of justice section first.
For more reaction on this story, we've reached Amber Phillips, political reporter for the Washington Post. She is in Washington. Amber, not many questions taken by William Barr. What stood out for you in particular at that news conference?
Yeah, I think the big thing to be underscored from that news conference is that he said he didn't necessarily agree with Robert Mueller's framework of obstruction of justice and how he looked at those 10 episodes that we'll soon review in great detail by reading the report. We don't know exactly what that means, but we do know that Attorney General Barr has been singularly coming down on the side of President Trump on anything to do with this report and investigation. So it suggests that when we read this report, there could be some more critical viewpoints from Special Counsel Mueller on the president's actions with regards to obstruction of justice. It also really jives with reporting that we've had that some of Mueller's special prosecutors didn't like the way the Attorney General summarized the report in March.
At that news conference, one of the things that really stood out for me was that reporters really had no information on which to base, good questions because the report had yet to be released. How difficult does it make, our job as journalists to get at the nut of it all when we don't have the report?
It makes it very difficult because you're sort of flying without flight instruments. You don't know what you don't know, and therefore can't ask smart questions to the Attorney General. What we did see were reporters trying to pin him on why he was attempting to summarize this report in front of the TV cameras when he told Congress he doesn't feel comfortable summarizing the report. If you remember, he was hit here in Washington for releasing 4 pages out of a 400-page report. And he went before Congress and said, you know what, I just feel like it's too much for me to try to summarize, so I'm not going to do this. I just wanted to give everyone the baselines of what the Mueller report said. But then he went on camera today and summarized it.
Right.
So reporters were able to ask him about that. He didn't really give a clear, satisfying answer.
And then when it came to questions of William Barr's take on the obstruction of justice evidence, and Mueller did not come to any conclusion, but really pointed to arguments, on either side of that line, obstruction of justice. And then he called it quits. Did you get that sense?
Yeah, I got the sense that the Attorney General got more and more frustrated as the questions got more and more pointed toward the way he was framing this report and using language that is pulled right out of President Trump's tweets. At one time, the Attorney General said, "No collusion," which is not a full sentence and also not a legal term that the Justice Department uses. But I got the sense, yes, that the Attorney General felt frustrated by pointed questions about the way he interpreted this report. He's been frustrated all along. And as you point out, if reporters had the Mueller report in their hands, they could have done some back and forth and said, well, here the Mueller report argued this legal framework for obstruction. Why didn't you, explain to us why you thought there were no charges there? And that would have been much more instructive for the American people.
We're waiting for that report, as you are. Perhaps in 20 minutes or so, Congress is going to get its version of it, and then afterwards it will be published on the special counsel's website, so we'll have our hands on it then. But even before that release, we're already getting reaction from some members of Congress. What are you seeing there in Washington?
Yeah, there is a hard partisan line and absolutely no nuance in between. Republicans have their graphics ready, much like the president did, that said, look, the president is vindicated, there's no collusion, game over, to use the president's language. Democrats are extremely skeptical of Barr's summarization of the report. You reported earlier that one of the key Democrats in the House, Chairman Nadler of the Judiciary Committee, says he wants Mueller to testify because he doesn't take at face value what Attorney General Barr said today at all. I think Democrats have a reason to be skeptical, given the way Barr has comported himself from the beginning with this report. But the point is, there's a hard partisan line, and I have yet to see any Republicans offer up some kind of nuance, or Democrats the other way around, that there might be more than just Trump is vindicated or we don't believe Trump is vindicated.
Amber, one of the things we're keeping an eye on up here in our newsroom is this event being held at the White House for wounded warriors, and your president is going to be addressing, I suppose, those veterans who are there. Perhaps he will make some comments about the Mueller report, but his tweet came out earlier, and there were comments from William Barr that the redacted version did go to Trump's personal lawyer as per normal. What else are you interested in when this eventually does come out?
Yeah, I want to see those 10 instances in great detail, is what the Attorney General Barr said, that merited some look at whether the president obstructed justice. What does that mean? What played out privately that we may not have known publicly? For example, the firing of FBI Director James Comey 2 summers ago raises the question of, was there anything Mueller was able to uncover in conversations that maybe corroborated Comey's version of events, that the president asked him for loyalty or told him to back off of his advisor, Michael Flynn? I think those 10 instances will be really fascinating to drill down on. In terms of the president, he has seemed ready to speak about this. He said yesterday on a radio show, hey, Attorney General Barr chimes in, I might afterwards. So I will be tuning in to this apolitical event for wounded veterans, fully expecting the president to talk and make it political.
All right, we're watching as well. Amber, great to have you on the program, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That is Amber Phillips, political reporter from the Washington Post, and we reached her there in Washington.